anime, cartoon, and comic world, you don't see a lot of good parenting, especially coming from fathers. And those are the things that define the life of the hero for the most part. In the same way, we don't see a lot of good examples of good fathers in the Bible. We instead have a lot of bad examples of fathers, like David as well as Eli. Now, amongst all of these bad fathers, we do find a diamond in the rough, and that diamond is Piccolo. Now, Piccolo is not necessarily a biological father, but he does step in and becomes a father figure for Gohan, Goku's son. Now, there's a point in the anime, Dragon Ball Z, where Goku passes after a fight with his brother who had attacked the Earth. And like any good anime, the plot moves forward because there is another threat coming to Earth. Now, what Piccolo does is that he decides to train Goku's son in order to prepare him for the threat to come. So he takes Gohan and he takes him to an isolated island and starts training him. Now, as we see him training Gohan, we find a lot of his techniques very harsh and almost cruel to a point. But ultimately, during this training and after the training, what we see is that Gohan does become stronger and he is much better prepared for the threat that is to come. Now, throughout the series, we do see that Piccolo does become a prominent figure in Gohan's life, and he does build a great relationship with him. Now, Piccolo's training did focus a lot on discipline and disciplining Gohan. And in that same way, when we look at the Bible, we do find out that one of the advice that the Bible gives when it comes to fathers raising up their children is to discipline them. Proverbs chapter 3, verses 11 and 12 say the following: "My child, don't reject the Lord's discipline, and don't be upset when he corrects you. For the Lord corrects those he loves, just as a father corrects a child in whom he delights." The book of Proverbs is filled with a lot of advice for daily living. And part of that advice, like I said before, is for fathers to discipline their children. And at first, this seems a bit harsh, like Piccolo's training. But when we start thinking about what disciplining your children involves, I think that it starts to make a little bit more sense. For example, in order for you to be able to discipline your child, you first need to teach them. You need to teach them the right way from right and wrong. Another thing that you have to do in order to be able to discipline your children is model the proper behavior, right? We can't be hypocrites when it comes to disciplining our kids. We have to model what we advise and what we talk about. There's a saying that says, "Do what I say, not what I do." And that's one of the most ridiculous things that I've ever heard. If you're giving somebody advice on whichever topic it is, you need to be able to model that. You can't just tell somebody to do something and do the complete opposite, right? It just doesn't make sense. The same way with parenting. In order for you to be able to discipline your child when they do things that are wrong, you need to have already modeled the proper behavior. And last but not least, and I think one of the most important ones, and I think that this is why Piccolo is looked at as a father figure for Gohan throughout the anime, is that in order for you to be able to discipline your child, you need to be present. And this is one of the things that Goku is accused for the most, is that he doesn't seem to be around except when there is a fight to be had. While as Piccolo seems to be a more present figure in Gohan's life. And in that same way, in order for you to be able to discipline your children, you have to be able to be present. If you're not present, how are you going to know when they're doing something wrong? And we can clearly see here from the scripture that part of loving your children is to discipline them, to correct them, right? If we have a child that's always eating candy and we never correct that behavior, then are we truly loving them? The last thing that I want us to consider is that in this world of anime, comics, and cartoons, there seems to be a real crying out for good fathers. And we see this in the absentee fathers in a lot of these characters that we read and watch on the screen. For example, look at Iron Man. All of the struggles that he goes through stems from a bad relationship with his father. You look at Star Wars. What is one of the most famous line of that series? Luke, I am your father. If we think of Ant-Man, one of the struggles that he has in the movie is being a good father and being present for his daughter. And if we look at Dragon Ball Z, an anime that's geared towards action, fighting, explosions, and transformation and power, what do you see? You see one of the greatest debates happening regarding this anime revolving around who is the better father to Gohan. So clearly fatherhood is very important. So I first want to thank and give a shout out to all those fathers that have been present and have been good fathers and parents to their kids. And this is also a calling for those fathers that maybe haven't been present up until today. Hopefully this encourages you to take more of an active role in your children's lives, because as we've seen, this is truly needed. Hey guys, hope that you enjoyed this video. If you like this video, I think you'll also want to check out this other video where we look at Endeavor and how he goes above and beyond the Call of Duty.